I'm going to answer Sabruto's questions, but I'm going to make sure I don't forget to answer Cody's. So I'll answer Cody's right after. So you were talking about presentation, right, Sabruto?
Yep.
Like, what's the best way to do a presentation? And there's a few things you can do. So you'll see online some really pro-looking presentations of like put like the name of the project, their name, email, like kind of like a little resume sheet, and they'll have like their character, take the frontier of that or the primary real estate of that canvas. And I think that's all good and well. Like, any of that, it doesn't hurt. It really doesn't. And it does make your work look a little bit more professional. I just know that whenever I was hiring people or I was looking at the artist portfolio, like that was like the least of my concerns. And then also whenever I got work, I never did this, and I still get a continuous flow of work, So clearly, what really matters is the artwork. Okay. Like all this presentation stuff is nice and it's useful. And I think you can have a negative presentation. Like if you have like a lot of like gimmicky looking stuff, I see sometimes this will happen where the people will like have like, here's like the real estate of their actual character design, but then they would have all this like techie grid like looking stuff like all around, but then the artwork would take like a fraction of the actual size. And I understand probably what's going on there. There's low res art will hide all their imperfections, But there's something to be said if you just have like just full on epic stuff going on. Like for instance, Vitali's website is like super cyborgish and kind of exactly what I don't like to see. It's just like really bulky. But then when you go look at like his actual pieces of artwork, right? Like there's like those little logos and a little bit of information on the bottom right corner and left corner, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not invasive and it's not distracting. It's just like his website and like stuff that I don't think is a big deal, right? But what's really important is like these close-ups, right? Like just the presentation in itself is just the artwork. That's what's selling the artwork, is the artwork. You get it?
Yeah. My question was also about should we post like the thumbnails and the iterations?
Yeah. So I was getting to that, right? And so then what you can do is you'd also don't want to do this where you would have, let's say you had like one page for per thumbnail, because then, you potentially will have like 20 pages before you get to actually any kind of refinement. And thumbnails in essence are best seen small anyway. So you can get away with like putting maybe your 10 best thumbnails, right? Like tell a story, like here's like the 10 best thumbnails that I did. And then you can maybe cut this in half and then be like, here's the iterations that I built off of for this one character. And then right following, like if I were to open your portfolio, like if it was a booklet, if I opened, they would both be facing one another. They would both be apparent. And then I would have like the character that was a result of all those practice or those thumbnails and iterations and sketches. So 2 pages essentially. You see that?
Yeah. So like in ArtStation, you can scroll down, right? I mean,
yeah. So in ArtStation, maybe it would be the hero shot, right? And then your iteration or your thumbnails, and then maybe your iterations. Mm-hmm. You can have like a couple images to scroll down to.
Okay.
If you have like some really good iterations, and maybe you can like separate them per, if you like, because you just really want to showcase, going back to like kind of Vitali's kind of process, but you want like the hero image to be the first image we see, and anything after that is just a matter of like quality. Is it like really good quality, and then you just want really people to showcase it? Yeah, I think that's all fine. One thing that I would also highly recommend you do is that make sure that, if you have orthographics, put them on their own page as well. Uh-huh. Okay, so people can check out the orthographics. But I generally suggest separating the final image from the thumbnails from the orthographics and that kind of. So there's 3 pages total. Sometimes you can, if you have large enough images, you can do the final painting, and then an orthographic and iterations and thumbnails all on one page, you know, as a demonstration that they exist, you know. So you can still keep it pretty lean. But if you really want to spread things out, I can imagine them being like 5 or 6 pages. Anything more than that, I think, is kind of intense. It's like just, it's a lot. But one thing that you should do too is like post every day, like the kind of work that you have. So let's say you have like 10 characters and each of them have their own iterations and thumbnails and process, right? Then post one character like on Monday, then post the second character on Tuesday, like that. Not don't post all of them all at once onto one post. You know, like really spread it out so that way you build your portfolio in that way as well. Okay. On your website, obviously, you can put them all there at once. But like on something like ArtStation, you just kind of want to just post every day or every other day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. And in terms of like the text and the framing of all the artwork, just make sure that the artwork is very clearly seen. That's it.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Yeah. No problem. Oh, wait. He asked more questions. Okay. My question is sort of about the business side of freelance. It may be a lot to answer right now, but it's something I haven't been able to find answers on in YouTube, video, Gumroad. When you're doing freelance, do you establish yourself as a company like an LLC, and why? I know a little bit about tax deductions and write-offs that are work-related and am wondering if that's something commonly done, and what is the benefits of doing so. And secondly, slightly your questions bore me, Cody. Just kidding. A related question would be regarding the logistics of freelance. Do you have any suggestions on web platforms for creating portfolios, storefront, site? I notice you have a setup like that with your Robotpencil page. I wondered if you're going through a third party to create those shirts or creating them yourself. And with all these various forms of income, freelance jobs, what is the most efficient way to file your taxes? The third, is the part question. The third is part question and possibly part advice for you. So I live in Washington and work for labor and industries workers comp. I'm not sure how it works in California, but in Washington, as a business owner, even without any employees, you can pay into workers comp for personal coverage. So as a freelance artist, let's look at some situations. Say you develop carpal tunnel, or you get in a car accident while doing work or something related, or you've been rendering so long your limbs literally do fall off. You could claim workers' comp instead of using your personal medical insurance. Ooh, or auto insurance to cover your medical. These sorts of things can also cover what's called a loss of earnings power, where let's say you get injured and can't do art for a month or can't do as much as you normally could. They would calculate your average wage and pay you out a percentage to you. I'm unsure if you're doing this already or if it's viable in California, but if you aren't, you should really look into it. Actually, I will. Yeah, I had no idea. I've never done any of that, so that's good advice, bud. Thank you. Thanks again, and AJ, best of luck to everyone. Don't be a stranger and join the Discord. We can help continue to critique and help push each other forward. Here's the Discord link for the who haven't helped it. Awesome. Great. Thank you, Cody. So that last one, which was great advice. Yeah, I never thought about that. I probably should have, because I pay everything out of pocket. So maybe there is some workers' comp that I can do. Now, the advice on the freelance stuff, I'm just going to go ahead and start painting something. So that way I can get some paintage going on. So the idea about taxes and freelancing and all that stuff, you're supposed to just keep track of all of your W-2s and your I-09s and just keep hold of them. And and have them at all times. Now, I believe the difference between like the LLC and like sole proprietor and corporation is that with a sole proprietor, um, you're basically accountable for all of your own taxes. And I mean, you still are for LLC, but you're just basically, if something bad happens, then you're liable for it personally. But if you have an LLC and it, like for whatever reason, you fail to pay your taxes appropriately, you can just file for bankruptcy under the company and not under your own personal finances. But I believe the benefits between the sole proprietor is uh, lower taxes. I forget exactly what it was, but I'm not actually really good about this because for the last 2 years I've been having to pay back taxes. And so the way to avoid this is that if you don't follow your taxes, if you do not pay your fair share of taxes quarterly or by the end of the year, right, or even monthly, then you're going to have to pay them back eventually, somehow, some way, right? And so that's pretty much what happened to me. I just wasn't paying attention to it, and I was just focused on other things, and so I ended up with a lot of back taxes. And so what you end up having to do, you have to talk with like the IRS, and with us, we have state taxes, so we have to talk with the state franchise board and set up payment plans to basically pay off those liabilities. And the way that now that I've had that experience and went through all that shit, which is not great, the strategy is to actually pay monthly into taxes. Just pay directly every month. Take a portion of your taxes and pay. You can do quarterly too, which is another piece of advice that was given to me. Which is, let's say you make a certain amount and then you pay your amount of taxes, which I believe is like 20% or 30% to stay safe. So at the end of the year, you can get a return on those taxes if you paid more than you needed to, and you're right caught up. And so what I'm going to do after I've already sorted a lot of the stuff on my end, the next thing that I need to start to do is to start to consider another monthly payment, which is taxes, like just to pay my taxes and my fair share that I've from all my income that I'm making. And I have to pay two sorts of taxes because I have to pay state tax because I live in California, and I have to pay federal tax because I'm an America. And so when you're a freelancer, you just get straight up cash, right? A lot of times, and you don't have to pay any of that. I sell my tutorials on Steam, and they actually pay your tax. They treat you as an employee, so you actually do not have to worry about that, which is actually pretty nice. You know, because it's one thing, like it still kind of sucks, right? Like this feeling of like you made all this money, but then you have to give it all to taxes, like a good portion of it, right? This is like one of the largest conservative arguments out there is that why do I have to pay for other people's health insurance or roads and stuff? Like, why can't I just have all my money, right? Which is I always argue with my friends who lean more left. I try to explain to them like that's a legit criticism, you know. For instance, there's this idea of like the wealthy should pay their fair share of taxes, right? And I agree with that, right? And the key there is their fair share. And there's this large conundrum that like a lot of political people on both sides have this real issue that they have a hard time understanding, which is that just because, let's say, someone makes $2 million or even more, let's say I made $10 million in 1 year, and as it was, then I would actually be paying. I'd have to pay more in taxes because I have so much money. Because basically, what the government was saying is that, well, you don't need all that money. And the question is that anyone else's business, right? Like, well, even if I don't need all that money, which I actually do agree with, I actually agree with that sentiment that there comes a point where there's too much money that people deserve or need. I mean, but you can't just say you don't need that money, give us that money, you know? And so this is why the left and the right can never agree, because I understand both arguments. I understand the one we're paying a lot of taxes, and I understand the other one where social programs actually bring the cost of living down overall. Because, for instance, because let's say we don't have a universal health care, I have to pay for all my healthcare. It actually would be cheaper if the government could subsidize that for everyone. I would have no money spent on any of that. I would prefer that. It's like other social programs in other countries, for instance, have like great systems for maternity where like the dads and moms can take long periods of times off, and they have caregiver, and like and daycare centers are subsidized by the government. So then if you're a working parent and like all that stuff, you can have all these benefits, right? We don't have any of that kind of stuff, at least not if you're make any kind of money. If you're really dirt poor, then there's a lot of programs for you. But if you're not dirt poor, then you don't have any of that. So that's why this middle class is shrinking. It's either, and so getting back to kind of this tax problem that we're talking about. So I'm living in that reality where I have to pay a lot in taxes because I make a lot of income, but it's not because it's not because of any other reason. Like it's just because I make more money than most people, then I have to pay more in taxes than most people, right? That's why you see a lot of wealthy people tend to lean more conservative, because they're like, the hell? Like, why do I have to pay all of a sudden a lot more just because I make a lot more? And that's why there's this problem of like the middle class shrinking, because I'm actually upper middle class, or I'm upper lower class. That's where I'm at. Meaning that I make enough money to live a really fulfilled life, but where I live is like, you have to be living upper middle class or upper class, or just basically upper class to live really comfortably. And I don't live comfortably where I live. That's why we're actually planning on leaving and moving, because the cost of living is just too much. It's just too expensive. So that's the solution. And I don't have to live in California. I can live anywhere I want as long as it has a high-speed internet. And that's what we're planning on doing. We're planning on leaving so that way I can get a hold of my financial situation, because it's just so expensive, and then taxes and the medical bills. And every time you add one new person to your life, things get way more expensive. And what's end up happening, and I advise this to anybody, is like, you should be covering your taxes with every bill that you put. Like, there's this good advice is that every check that you get, like, this is if you're not being taxed directly, because when you work for a company, they do that all for you. They take the money out already for you, and they put it into your account for you. They do all that stuff as part of working for a company. But if you work for yourself, if you don't have an accountant or anything like that, then no one's doing that for you. And you just take the money and just go ahead and spend it on whatever you like. And that's not ideal, because you are getting government benefits, right? Because we're driving on roads, you have access to the police and some subsidies and firefighters and other natural disaster programs that are government funded. You have access to many things, more things than you probably suspect, that are paid by taxes. That's the whole point of why you have to pay in. Like, you're getting all these benefits that are available to you, public schools, all this other stuff, right? Then you need to pay your fair share of taxes. And so what you got to do is just be proactive about that. You have to be preemptive. And that's something that I didn't do before, and I'm paying for it now. But it wasn't like I was running from it either. I was talking to my tax people. I had some people help me with this stuff, and they're setting it up so that way I can not run into this problem in the future. But it's luckily for me, I didn't make so much money, or I didn't have so much in back taxes that I can't manage it, that I can't take care of it. Like, I didn't make tremendously large amounts of money, but I made enough that it's a problem. But it's a problem that I can fix. And I've been in this situation a few other times, not with this specifically, but where I made a lot of money in a certain project or something, but it wasn't so bad. It wasn't so large that it was really devastating, that I couldn't resolve it somehow. And I think that's really important to build these types of situations so you guys can avoid these problems. But yeah, Cody's right. There's not a lot of YouTube videos or tutorials or even classes out there that teach you how to do this. And it should be taught in school, because like, this is a problem. Like, people need to be educated on how to pay and do their taxes, so that way we don't have all this like problem of fraud and evasion And sometimes people don't want to do that. They just are afraid of, the consequences. And so as a freelancer, you had to do that part of the business that I didn't know that is hard, but like everything else, I've always taught is that everything is hard, and I should have known better. So, hope that answers the question. Hey AJ, thanks so much for everything. I gotta go. Oh wait, there was a question before that, Vanessa. Freelancers get taxed more heavily, don't they, compared to working at a company? No, I think it's actually similar, right? I think it's the same. It's just that it feels like a lot more because you're like paying out directly. But where the money actually starts to affect you, or when this starts to affect you badly, is when you make more money. The more money you make, the more taxes you have to pay into, and the percentage of that. I believe like what happened recently with the newest tax bill that Trump, like my taxes are actually going to go down. Like I'm going to pay lower rates into my taxes according to what Trump's planning to do. And I'm not a big fan of Trump at all. And I don't understand. I mean, I understand why this is happening, right? There's people that are not in my position entirely too. There's some people that are like filthy rich who will want those benefits, but there's actually people also in my position who don't have any malicious intent, but they feel gouged by all these extra taxes that they have to pay. And so this is why a lot of people actually do support him that aren't crazy filthy rich, like jerk offs, you know, that are who've gotten filthy rich by taking advantage of those who are less fortunate, right? There's a lot of people out there who make good money who aren't filthy rich they feel cheated, but I have the foresight to see that, and historically speaking, every time this has happened, it's actually wrecked the economy, and for both rich and poor people. And when you build better social programs and better programs that allow people to have more money to spend, you actually create better economic stability, right? Like it would be lucrative if my country paid people for their education for my business, because my business is an educational platform, meaning that the government would pay me for students. So like imagine a lot of my students here that are Americans could take advantage of that. Like they can apply for this program, and then the program gives you the $500 you need to pay for my class. I would be guaranteed a student, because if that student didn't have to worry about paying, there was a lot of people who would love to take my class if they didn't have to pay out of pocket. And that would mean that the government would then pay out all of my classes, and all my classes would almost always sell out the first week, and that would be lucrative for my business. And then also my tutorials would sell more, because then people can buy my tutorials with the same government money, right? If there's a cap of like $1,000 that one can spend on their education, let's say, then I would be making a lot more money. And people would be more educated, and then they would build their own careers and build their own companies. That's foresight. That's what foresight does, is to think the bigger picture, right? So I understand maybe, I'm going to get some extra cash, but it's going to be short lived. I'm actually preparing for the next recession because I know it's going to happen. That's why we're moving. And some people are just super greedy. They just don't see it. They just want to get their money and then cash out. Bet big and then cash the fuck out. And I'm like, ugh. And I'm not in a position that I could just cash out either. Even if I wanted to be malicious, I'm not in a position where that could happen to me. Because people would also not have enough money to afford. But my business is a global one. Like, it's not catered to just the economic stability of America. It's also, I have students from around the world. So I think I'll do fine. But I'm worried about some of my friends who do not have that same circumstance. You know what I mean? And so, and I'm just worried too, just in general, maybe there's going to be a global problem. I'm already linking up with Chinese tutorial websites where they're going to localize a lot of my tutorials, and I'm going to get a share of the profits made from a whole different market that probably will warm up to my tutorials, you know? And so I'm already trying to globalize because that's the future, globalization. That's why I'm making all my games web games, because that's going to be the best entry for more sustainability, is if my games can be played by many people, and then just license the IPs, like make t-shirts or toys based off of any popular IP that may really hit, you know, large markets, and make my games ad free, so that way I can make games however the fuck I want to make them, and not be heavily reliant on making money from advertisers, but making money from IP. It's going to take a long time. I'm actually positive it is, but I'm patient. But hopefully this gives you guys a lot of insight on just like why politics is so vicious too, like why people are like on both sides or kind of wrong. Like there's legitimate cases to be said on both, and the solution is not very easy. I get it. Just people just won't listen to each other, and then fucks everyone over. And they're like, see, told you those people were stupid. And then they go and follow the other ideology. And then you start to have small businesses start to fail because they're overtaxed. And then you say, see, we got to stop overtaxing small businesses. And then they don't tax them at all. And then social programs start to collapse. And then nobody can pay into these small businesses again. So it's like, there's a middle ground. And I think the ultimate solution is really good social programs need to be mandatory and for sustainable governments in the future, which is universal basic income, universal healthcare, and universal education. I think those three, you can't have one or the other. You have to have all three of them, because robots are going to start replacing people's jobs. So you need a way that people can just have money, even if they don't do shit, right? And then you got to have a societal agreement that just because you get cancer doesn't mean you should go bankrupt. Like everyone should agree. And I think most people do agree on that. We should help each other out. You know, it's sad when your country, the best way for people to pay for these large medical bills is when they have to use GoFundMe's and Kickstarters. That's really sad. Okay. And having universal education will then also hopefully build some competition amongst the educational platforms, so that then it's a merit-based educational platform versus do you have enough money? And because that makes stupider people, is if you have more money, you can go to our college, and if you don't make any at all, then you can't go to our college. That's not ideal. But I think there's actually a workaround that's happening to this problem, that there's a solution to universal education that's already kind of occurring, which is like YouTube and like digital tutors or lynda.com, like these types of platforms, like Skillshare, even like Gumroad tutorials, you know, although most of them are like artistic. I think these types of platforms is ideally kind of what I thought universal education should look like. And so it's kind of like the market actually is kind of naturally creating a solution to this problem. It would just be nice if the governments, you know, paid into this and encouraged this, right? Like if everyone chipped in their 2 cents of their taxes to fund these types of things, then I think we would have huge economic increases, because people would be smarter and people can take more chances. And yeah, so that's kind of like where I stand on all that stuff. But at the same time, there's other left-leaning or liberal politics I disagree with strongly, because of what I just said. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think it's accurate and reasonable. But we won't get into that. I'm going to answer more questions. Hey, Jay. Say thanks. Yeah, man. Unrelated, do you have any recommendations for 3D software that is easier to learn, so you can spend more time designing and less fighting with the interface, or good resources for learning 3D suites? I would say, Pat, you just got to like sit down and just pick one. There's a lot of really good resources for a lot of different 3D platforms, but one that I would say that you should probably get into is Blender. You should learn Blender. I think Blender is really great, and it's on the frontier of epic 3D power. So just start learning some Blender, and you'll start to kick some butt sooner than later. Yeah, start learning some Blender, bro. But I also like 3D coats. ZBrush is really great. You know, some of the more notable ones are still awesome. They're still really good. It's just that the future is moving a little faster than they're able to update, and other software that exists is able to adapt to these types of changes, specifically like Blender. So it's just like a legacy problem. Like just because people used it for so long doesn't necessarily mean it's the best, but they are still pretty good. So you just got to pick one, and it's going to take a while to learn the interface. There's yet to be like a 3D software that has like super easy interface that then allows you to make super epic things. Almost everything requires some time and patience. But Blender is pretty good. Like there's a lot of tutorials on Blender. There's a whole website where this guy, his name is Blender, or he goes by the name Blender Guru. He's got so many great tutorials. I would highly recommend watching his videos. Tax. Wait, hold on. That tax plan is still trickle down economics, which is proven not to work. Yeah. I have a question next. Yeah, having to use GoFundMe's for medical expenses, that's saddest. That's sadist indeed, or saddest indeed. Although my question is a little personal and only concerns me. Yeah, go for it, Jack. You can like unmute and talk to me too. It's better.
Yeah.
So that way I don't have to read. Reading is OP though.
I would just wanted to wait for you to finish what you're saying.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm kind of fortunate to live in a country which is tiny, Luxembourg, and where the states and everything really does a good job at sort of helping people fulfill their own projects. And the state with the education has an option where they like help people participate in courses pretty much like your one, and if they can even actually reimburse some of. I'm sounding really low.
Sorry, you're like cutting in and out.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's the internet connection here, so it's really, really bad.
Okay, so try. I'm trying to listen to it as best I can. I'm getting most of what you're saying.
Okay, and basically, I can get reimbursed a percentage of the price I paid for the course. The only thing is though is that they want like a proven certificate saying, hey, you've succeeded in the course, you've done really well.
Oh yeah, you wrote me that. I can do that. It's no problem.
Okay, great. I sent you the mail, and I think I sent it twice because I wasn't too sure which email.
No, thanks for reminding me. Yeah, I'll do that. I've done that before for other students, so it's no big deal.
Well, if you could just take, a couple minutes just to write something.
Yeah, that's sick, dude.
Thank you very much. It's very kind of you.
It's not a big deal. It's not hard.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, it's very kind of you to do it.
Yeah, I just say this person did a good job. I just put like a little cool emblem.
It was very flattering too. I could print it out and put it on the wall of my bedroom every morning. I wake up.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good day.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's what I'm trying to say, right? Like that kind of stuff is awesome, and it's good for my business because then people can take my classes without having to worry about cost. That's great.
Exactly. Yeah, but Luxembourg is seen as light years ahead of the rest of Europe.
Oh yeah, there's countries that do a good job of this. It's just interesting that our country is just like, nah, doesn't work. And I'm like, that's empirically false. It's not up for debate. There's evidence that it works in many different countries. Here's a good way of thinking about it. Like, so there's argument about like healthcare is always like, he's like, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work, right? Like, we don't want Canada's healthcare. It won't work here. And I'm like, there's an argument that I heard and I really think is great. It's the flip side of this argument is nobody's out to get America's healthcare. Nobody's like fighting the policies of their countries saying, you know what healthcare really works? America's. Nobody's fucking doing that because everybody knows that it's fucking garbage. You know? It's a fact. Like if ours is so dope, then how come nobody's fighting for our healthcare system? You know, there just aren't. Nobody is. Any politician at most of these countries that have these programs are almost always laughed at for even thinking about bringing any of that stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. I understand some arguments of like, you know, having the free market run the healthcare system. I understand how that could be, how that there can be a solution there. I do. I really believe that the free market, there's a lot of value in it. Okay. But it's just the thing that's being sold that's the hard thing to make the case for, which is people's health. You know, everyone's going to get sick and everyone's going to die. See, the reason why car insurance works as well as it does, or at least better, is that I may never get in a car accident, right? Meaning that the car insurance company got all that money without ever spending a dime on me. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So like the large majority of people who drive don't get in car accidents, right? Otherwise people would stop driving cars if like the majority of people died or got in severe car accidents. Don't get me wrong. It's a huge number still. Okay. It's large. It's really still pretty large, like in the millions, like tens of millions of people get in car accidents yearly in the United States. But we're a population of over 300 million people. So that's still a fraction of the population. You know what I mean? But the difference with healthcare is that 300 million people are still going to get sick and eventually die. Right? And so the majority of us get sick and the majority of us are going to die and get really sick towards the end of our lives. Doesn't matter how healthy you were before, you know? And so that's the problem, man. And I don't, it's hard to debate anybody that's really firm on that. And I just, no, free market, bro. But I thought about it, I was like, okay, what would the free market solution be? Well, the free market solution would be a solution where a doctor like would have like an online course on dietary habits and fitness, right? Like an actual medical doctor and nutritionist, like that has a doctorate in both in medical anatomy and sciences, right? And also a doctorate in nutrition, right? If I was that doctor that says, here's the kinds of foods that you should eat, the kinds of exercises you should do to maintain a healthy and sustainable life. This is how you get rid of all these ailments or at least prevent them, you know? And you can get the meal plans and like free counseling by paying a subscription model of like $100 a month or $50 a month. So as a doctor, I would get all that money, right? And that would be a lot, especially if I kept my patients healthy. But then I would also be able to do procedures on those who get really unhealthy, or maybe I can pay other doctors or contract other surgeons to do, you know, surgeries on my patients that get really sick. And I would have enough money to pay those people because the majority of my patients would actually be super healthy, you know? So that could be the only solution I can think of on the top of my head. But still, there would come a point that even in that business strategy, that all my healthy patients, there's going to be a large number of them. Because in the beginning, I won't have that, right? But towards the end, I'm going to have a lot of 7-year-old and 80-year-olds that are just going to be really sick, you know? And that's what happened that's what's happened to our economy recently, is that the baby boomers are all old and dying now. And our economy is being fucking shredded because of it, you know? And so foresight, dude. People just don't have fucking foresight. And it's the most annoying thing I've ever seen about humans. You know, as a whole, we're just not really good at foresight. You know, evolution is pretty good at it. Evolution will weed out the weak, right? Like if humans just couldn't get their act together, evolution's just like, all right, well, you guys had your chance. Climate change, obliterate most of the population. Oh, nuclear war, obliterate most of the population. You know? Like it doesn't care about whatever our differences were, right? It's just, all right, well, they had their chance. They just fucking couldn't figure it out. You know? So be it. You know?
Carver.
Yeah. So I'm saying, yeah, take advantage of those perks, man, because those are good perks that a lot of people don't have in many different countries. including one of the most wealthiest countries, which is sad. Like, I don't mind paying all those extra taxes. I just don't get any of the extra benefit. That's what frustrates me. You know, I don't mind. Like, I'd be happy to pay every single dime if I had free healthcare. You know, it would just be cheaper. It just would be, and it would be better. Life would just be better.
Come over and live in Europe.
I'm sorry. Say that again. You cut out like really badly.
You can come over and live in Europe.
Yeah, me and my wife have not. We're not attached to our country of origin. You know, we're actually planning on moving out of country at some point. Not because we hate our country. It's just because there's other countries that are also pretty nice. You know, there's other great countries out there. America's not the only one that has good stuff going for it. You know, and it's not the only one with a lot of bad things going for it. There's no perfect country out there. You know, it's just that my business is not reliant on my location. So we do have those options. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, we thought about it. We thought about moving to a whole different country. But right now we're just going to move to a different state.
Yeah, I mean, the kids are still kind of.
Yeah, the kids are super expensive. Huh?
What kind of
It's
country are
hard
you considering?
moving.
Oh, what double people are talking. I'm going to answer the one, what country are you planning on? I was thinking some of the more Norwegian countries. Also, I was thinking of, like, you know, my wife's from Nicaragua originally, actually. I mean, she's lived in America more than she's lived in her country where she was actually born, her actual country of origin. But they don't have fast internet. Like we wouldn't be able to sustain unless I picked like a whole different type of job. You know, I mean, I guess I could probably still do freelance, like concept art. You know, because I don't need fast internet for that. I can just email people still from Nicaragua. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be immediate. I can still work from home. I can still communicate to them. You know. Hold on. But I just couldn't. Yeah, I just couldn't do online classes. The internet's not nowhere near as fast as it needs to be. And I really enjoy it. It's definitely my passion, just teaching. There's other issues too, that are just like domain restrictions. Different countries have restricted certain websites and domains. So I'd have to make sure that certain like websites that I use would work there too. So I can't live just anywhere, but my options are pretty widespread. I have a lot of options. You know? Any other questions, guys? We only have a few more minutes before the class is officially over.
I have a question about Photobashes, but I don't know if Jack had another question or something.
It's all right. I've answered Jack's question.
So I guess Photobashes in the portfolio, to what extent it's okay to like have that in there? And
the only time you should have Photobashed work in your portfolio is if that's the kind of work you want to do. That should be only the standard for anything that goes in your portfolio. A B. Okay?
yeah, I guess I'm asking because it feels like I shouldn't have that in my portfolio at all, even if it's like figures into like, you know, concept work. There's Photobashing.
Well, answer me. Why do you think that?
Because I should be showing off I should be demonstrating rendering skills and Photobashing. Well, that's also like a skill of some sort. It just feels like I have like this impression that it's something where I should have only stuff that shows off the rendering.
Yeah, so
those kinds of skills instead, like all just stuff that I only did myself.
So that's inaccurate. So I wanted to make sure I understood what you thought. So that's just a self-reflection, and that's the one that you and I share, right? Like we appreciate the ability to do things well, right? We appreciate the actual control of our skill. Not to say that those who do photobashing don't have any skill. It's really slippery to say like they don't have any skill. That's obviously not what you're saying, nor what I'm trying to say right now.
Yeah,
But
definitely there's skill in that. Like I'm thinking specifically of Navan Chantara. I'm sure I'm probably messing up his name, but he's probably like an artist that I think of immediately that has a lot of photobashing. That's like one of his big things he does.
okay, so let me try to answer, like complete the answer to this question, right? Okay, so it's just all you have the wrong impression of what a portfolio should be. Then, okay, the portfolio should just, like as I just said just a moment ago, be a reflection of the kind of work you want to do. That's it. It doesn't matter if you do everything by hand painting it, like literally like traditional markers and shit like that, or you use 3D photobashing, DAZ 3D kind of model mockups. Okay, because most art directors aren't necessarily attentive to that. Okay, and some directors in general don't have any artistic skill at all, but they can recognize quality regardless. Okay, even if it's photobashed. You understand? So there's a very clear path that photobash usually leads to, which is more photorealistic, film-esque type work. You know, that's just the path that leads down to. But does that mean that to work in film you would only have to do photobashing? No, I'm just saying that tends to lead to that path because it's catering to that genre. So all that means is then if you're going to paint everything, you're going to have to paint at that level as well. Does it make sense? Like if you're going to hand paint everything, then you're going to have to paint it or draw it just as good as if it was looking like a photo, and just as quickly. Does this all make sense to you?
Yep.
So that's just something I realized. So this is why I paint as quick as I do and as well as I do. Because I do prefer painting. In fact, I think it's faster than photobashing. Because photobashing, you still have to get the photo, you have to correct the photo, you know? But if you could just paint it the right way the first time, then there's no need to use photos. You know? And it's really hard to do that. Right? Not a lot of people can do that. And most people opt out to do photobashing because it is a really quick way to get to that level, right? But you are limited. You're limited to the photos that are available to you. You know? When you can paint and you have this stuff floating in your mind, and you have very low limits, because then you're only limited to what you know, right? Which is way more powerful, you know? And so that's what I'm trying to say. Like, and it's not like I don't like photobash. I've actually done it many times on work. Like the stuff that I just showed you guys earlier, the monster truck stuff, I did that. That's because like every day I had to have photorealistic stuff. And at the time that I was working there, I actually was not painting fast enough to do that. You know? And I didn't feel cheapened by it. I just knew this was just the job that needed to be done. My favorite tool for photorealism is to paint it. But if I feel like I need to go faster than that, then I'll use 3D. I think 3D is even better than photobashing because I'm still being creative. I'm still in control of a lot of what's being made, right? And I can get that photorealistic lighting and material more than I would ever be able to do in a painting, and almost just as fast, if not faster, right? And I get different perspectives and different angles, you know?
Yeah, I guess I just was.
But then but then I'm also limited with 3D because of like, you can't, like in 3D, you can't just do this. Like I can't just all of a sudden add like a crazy new feature to my design in an instant, you know? So there's limitations and strengths to it both. So that's why I like to do 3D and paint, because I can get a little bit of both worlds. And that's my preferred process in general, is 3D and painting primarily. But 3D, if I just want something really nice and dirty without worrying about lighting and rendering too much, or perspective specifically. So what were you saying before I cut you off? I'm sorry.
No, I was just trying to understand how it fits into, like as the concept art process and like.
Yeah, I'd say you should practice it. Why not? Like, you might actually love it. Like, really give it a shot. Like, really try it. Don't like just do it and not like it at first and then just write it off forever. Like, you should try it. Like, really try to make good artwork using photobashing so you can understand what benefits are there. Because maybe you'll still use it from time to time as a very small part of what you do, right? But your portfolio should be a complete reflection of the kind of work you want to do. Always remember that. Okay? Because if you have nothing but tomatoes for sale, don't expect people to want to buy oranges from you. You know what I mean? Like, your passion is about selling oranges, but you keep selling tomatoes because everyone else keeps selling tomatoes because the market for tomatoes is really high, And don't be shocked that nobody's going to hire you for something that you don't actually sell. Right? Like, it doesn't work that way. No one's like thinking, man, this person's doing photorealistic stuff. I bet they would do great animating or doing some designs for my animated film about, pigs. Like, Pixar has probably, I'm sure artists at Pixar have seen my portfolio, but I don't think any artist there was like, we need to get Anthony Jones in here to work on the next Monsters Inc. movie. That's never going to happen. And I don't lose sleep because of it, because I understand why.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah. Like, the recruiters, it's really that simple. I mean, and I always say, put yourself in the perspective of being a recruiter. Like, let's say you're the one in control of hiring people, okay? And you're working on a project where you have to sell, or you have to make a game or movie idea around transforming robots, okay? With that being said, would you hire yourself in that context? Like, you're the owner of this company and you see your portfolio, the one that you just submitted today, right? Would you hire yourself, and why wouldn't you? And that's like not hypothetical. I'm actually asking, like, how would you, like, would you hire yourself based off of what you submitted today? If the project was photorealistic, like transforming robots, that was the project. Would you hire yourself?
No, because I just don't have robots in that.
Yeah. It's nothing personal, right? Like, it's just how it is. It's just how it is. Like, that's not what you're selling, dude. But then if I was saying, let's say the guy who made Cell, right? Have you ever seen that movie with like Jennifer Lopez? Okay, so that guy decided to make another movie like Cell 2, and looking for some like, really bizarre imagery. And then your portfolio was amongst, and you're the hiring manager, and your portfolio was amongst those. Like, would you have a better shot at that project than the Transformers project? Absolutely, right? Because your stuff does seem like it could fit in that universe, right? It's like bizarre and weird and interesting, And so, yeah, me too. I hate the story. I hate everything about the movie, other than the look and the feel of it. Everything else is like garbage. I don't even remember the plot. But you get my point now. Hopefully, you get my point. Okay, good. Yeah, and a lot of people ask this question a lot, and I understand why, because you're hoping that there's some sort of gem of truth of like, they can see past my genre and know that I'm capable of all kinds of things. And the reality is, you're actually kind of not either, And let's say that does happen, and that has happened before. People hired me to do environment art, and I have like no environment art in my portfolio, but yet they've hired me just to do environment art, And I do a terrible job, or not as good of a job, and they're just like shocked. They're like, well, how come this is not going well? And I'm like, because I'm not an environment concept artist. And I've learned to stop taking jobs like that. I did in the past because, you know, I was desperate for money or I just needed the extra cash, but I stopped doing it because it's not smart. Okay, so it's like, even if you did get that opportunity to work on like that photo bashing project, right? You might not like it, you know. And so
Actually, I have done some just like for fun, for fan art stuff, and I do find it fun.
okay, so that's all I'm saying is like, do what you want to do. So if you feel like you want to put some of that stuff in your portfolio, then by all means do it. You know, I'm not stopping you. I'm not trying to stop you. I'm just trying to make you always think from that lens of, I'm doing this because I want to work on this. Okay.
Okay.
Not because I've seen so and so have more of it in their portfolio. Because you're going to go down a different type of it's like the kind of argument that I brought up earlier about like people who don't trust authority, right? Like everybody's wrong, and then that's a slippery slope, because then what makes your authority the authority that we should be trusting? You know. So you go around the same idea of like, well, that person had that in their portfolio. Well, I bet you I can find examples of someone who doesn't have that in their portfolio. So what now? You know, and they're lucrative and they're working in industry and they're doing great. You know, and they're working in films and everything that the other person's doing as well, but they don't do any of that. They don't have any photo bashing. You see my argument?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So then that's why you should not fixate on that kind of lens. You fixate on the one that's more personal. Like, what do you prefer? Because that's the only one you really, to be honest, the only thing you can control. You can't really control any of the other variables. You know? And so I think that's enough. I think that's good insight for that.
Yeah, your point's crystal.
Okay, great. I'll take on one more question, and then I'm gonna let you guys go. Best location for art jobs at game studios? It all depends on what you prefer. I worked at Blizzard and I loved it, and I lived in Irvine for a majority. I have no idea. That's a hard question to answer because I've only worked at so many companies, so it's not like I have a large world view on what's really the best place to work at. I think that's just preference. I think you should just try them out and you'll know which one you like. I have a friend who loves freelance more than he loves studio work. I actually prefer studio work. I really do like to work in a studio, but I like being closer to my family more than I like working at a studio. So that's the reason why I work from home. Like if I didn't have a family, I would probably still work at a studio. I don't like to work freelance in particular, but I do like to be close to the kids, and so I've adapted to like freelance. But I'm a social person. I like to be around others. That's why I started teaching at brainstorming, because I was feeling like I was missing the interaction with other people. I really wanted to get that. Any other questions, guys? All right. I'm going to let you guys go. So I really appreciate all the hard work you guys have done for my class. You guys have killed it. This is one of the more exceptional classes I've had. You know, every once in a while I get really crazy good artists pumping out crazy good work for my courses, and this is one of those classes in those cases. So I'm very proud of everything you guys have done. Please try to work on them for like another week or so. Submit them to me on the Discord. I'll send the Discord link soon so you guys can have access to it. I mean, Cody sent one, but I'll send another one. And then I'll send you a link to all the classes and stuff that we've done, so that way you guys can download it. And I highly recommend you download it and keep it safe on your own server somewhere. I probably won't change the link location, but if you ever lose access, just let me know and I can find the class and send you a link and you can download it again. But anyways, peace out, guys. Have a great day and rest of your career. Good luck. Peace out. Hope to see you guys soon. Laters. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.